My family broke into my secret Lakeside retreat I'd bought in hiding. In the video my friend sent, my sister raised her drink and smirked. Too bad she's too spineless to enjoy it, I called my boyfriend. The rage that swept through me wasn't the hot, impulsive kind that makes you do stupid things. It was cold, calculating fury that sharpened my focus like a blade. I was sitting in gate C-14 at Denver International, flight delayed another hour, watching my family desecrate the sanctuary I'd worked 18 months to buy. The retreat wasn't just property to me. It was proof that I'd finally broken free from their constant belittling, their assumption that quiet Nora would always be their doormat. But seeing them sprawled across my furniture, drinking from my bar, mocking me in my own space while I was trapped 200 miles away at a consulting conference, something fundamental shifted. The scared little girl who'd spent 28 years apologizing for existing was gone. In her place sat someone who'd spent the last 5 years building a strategic consulting firm from nothing. Someone who'd learned that the best revenge isn't served hot. It's served with documentation and legal backing. I replayed Zoe's video 3 times, taking mental notes. My parents, Victor and Sylvia, my sister Laya with her pretentious boyfriend Ryan, and my cousin Theo, all laughing as Laya held up a bottle of the expensive wine I'd been saving. Nora's little shack, she'd called it. Too bad she's too spineless to enjoy it. The casual cruelty in her voice was nothing new, but the setting amplified it into something unforgivable. Caleb answered on the first ring. Nora? I thought you were in meetings all day. Change of plans? My voice was steady, almost unnaturally calm. I need you to drive to the lake house. Now. The pause stretched long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. When he spoke again, his voice carried a dangerous edge. What happened? They broke in. My family. They're having a party. I forwarded him the video. Zoe's there documenting everything from her cabin next door. I need you to handle this before I get home tomorrow. Jesus Christ, Nora. Are you sure you want me to? Yes. The word came out clipped, final. Handle it. What my family didn't understand, what they'd never bothered to learn, was that their spineless Nora had become someone you definitely didn't want to cross. My strategic consulting firm, Meridian Analytics, specialized in corporate crisis management and competitive intelligence. I'd built my entire career on reading people, identifying their weaknesses, and developing methodical approaches to neutralize threats. The difference was that now the threat was personal. I'd purchased the Lakeside retreat 18 months ago after landing a major contract with a Fortune 500 client. The $800,000 property sat on 12 acres of pristine Colorado wilderness, complete with private dock and mountain views that made the stressed executive in me finally exhale. I'd bought it under an LLC to keep it private, not just from clients, but from my family's inevitable demands for access to anything I achieved. The secrecy hadn't been paranoia. It had been strategy. My family had a pattern going back to childhood. Anything good in my life became theirs by default. My first apartment became Laya's crash pad when she dropped out of college. My car became the family loaner when theirs broke down. Even my college fund had been borrowed to cover Theo's legal fees after his second DUI. I learned early that the only way to keep something was to ensure they never knew it existed. But I'd made a mistake 6 months ago. During one of our increasingly rare family dinners, I'd mentioned wanting to buy a place outside the city. Somewhere quiet to recharge on weekends, I'd said. The response had been predictable. Eye rolls from Laya, lectures about fiscal responsibility from Victor, and suggestions from Sylvia that I should invest in the family instead. I dropped the subject and let them assume I'd abandoned the idea. Now, watching Caleb's headlights cut through the mountain darkness via Zoe's live stream, I realized my mistake had given me an unexpected advantage. They thought they were humiliating weak little Nora. Instead, they'd broken into the home of someone who'd spent years learning how to destroy people professionally. My phone buzzed with a text from Caleb. 5 minutes out. Zoe says they're getting loud. I called my lawyer, Patricia Hawkins, who had handled the property purchase. Patricia, I need an emergency consultation. Someone's broken into my lake house. Are you calling the police? Not yet. I want to document everything first, then pursue this strategically. Can trespass charges stick if I have video evidence of forced entry and property damage? Absolutely. With video documentation showing willful trespass and destruction of property, you're looking at potential criminal charges and civil liability. Do you know the perpetrators? Unfortunately, yes. It's family. Patricia's sigh was audible. Family cases are always messier, but the law doesn't care about blood relations when it comes to property rights. Document everything. File a police report, and we can discuss both criminal and civil options. The video feed from Zoe's phone showed Caleb's truck pulling up the gravel drive. Through the window, I could see my family inside, their party in full swing. Victor had found my premium scotch. Laya was posing for selfies on my custom leather sofa. Ryan was rifling through my kitchen cabinets like he owned the place. What happened next unfolded with the precision of a military operation. Caleb didn't knock. He used the spare key I'd given him, walking into my home like he belonged there, which, unlike them, he actually did. The conversation cut off mid-laugh. Glasses froze, halfway to mouths. The fire I'd built into the stone hearth flickered over 5 guilty faces turning toward the door. "Cozy gathering," Caleb said, his voice carrying that particular tone that made corporate executives squirm in their chairs. "Did Nora forget to invite me? Or did you all forget this isn't your property?" My mother recovered first, forcing a laugh that sounded more like a cough. "Caleb, don't be ridiculous. We're just borrowing it. Nora won't mind." Borrowing. He pulled out his phone, holding up the video Zoe had sent. "You forced the lock on the back door, helped yourselves to her bar, and I just watched your daughter call this place Nora's little shack while toasting the fact that she's too spineless to enjoy it." The silence that followed was beautiful. Ryan, probably fueled by too much of my scotch, made the fatal mistake of trying to assert dominance. "Look, man, you're overreacting. This is family stuff. You wouldn't understand." Caleb stepped closer, and I watched Ryan shrink back. At 6'3" with the build of someone who'd played college football, Caleb could be intimidating when he wanted to be. Right now, he definitely wanted to be. "Family stuff?" Caleb's voice dropped lower. "You mean like how you called her a nobody while laughing about how she'll never find out you trashed her place? That kind of family stuff?" Ryan's face went pale. He'd forgotten about the video. My father stood up, puffing out his chest in a display of authority that might have worked on me 10 years ago. "We've given Nora everything. She owes us this place." "Owes you?" The laugh that came from Caleb was everything I would have said if I'd been there. "Victor, Nora bled for this retreat. Every dollar came from her work, her sacrifice, her success. You've only ever torn her down." "She's our daughter," my mother whispered, but even she sounded uncertain now. Being biological family doesn't give you the right to break into someone's home and mock them. Caleb's presence filled the room. "This ends tonight. You're going to clean up this mess, you're going to leave, and you're going to stay away unless Nora explicitly invites you back." That's when Laya showed exactly why I'd bought this place in secret. "She's still the same pathetic Nora, desperate for our approval," she snapped, apparently deciding that doubling down was better than admitting fault. "She'll forgive us. She always does." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Through the phone, I could see Caleb's jaw tighten. When he spoke, his voice carried a finality that made my chest tighten with gratitude. Pathetic? Nora built $1 million consulting firm from nothing while you were busy failing at whatever your latest scheme was. She's tougher than all of you combined, and after tonight, she's done enabling your delusions. He pulled out his phone and started recording. You have 10 minutes to clean up this mess and get off her property. If I find any of you here again, or if you contact her before she's ready to deal with you, I'll file trespassing charges and make sure everyone in your social circle knows exactly what kind of people you really are." The cleanup happened in brutal silence. Glasses were rinsed and returned to cabinets. Spilled wine was mopped from my hardwood floors. The expensive bottle of scotch they'd opened was left on the counter. Evidence of their theft, Caleb explained to Zoe's camera. As they filed out, each one looked smaller somehow. Victor muttered something about overreaction, but didn't meet Caleb's eyes. Sylvia seemed to be fighting back tears, finally understanding that her daughter had someone who would fight for her. Theo hadn't said a word since Caleb arrived, but Leah couldn't resist one final shot. "This won't last," she said, nodding toward Caleb as she reached the door. "When he sees who she really is underneath all that consultant bullshit, he'll realize what we've always known." Caleb's response was everything I could have hoped for. "I see exactly who she is, someone strong enough to cut toxic people out of her life, smart enough to build something real, and brave enough to protect what matters to her. The only question is whether you're smart enough to stay gone." The door closed behind them with a finality that echoed through my chest, even 200 miles away. I spent the flight home the next morning planning my next moves with the methodical precision that had built my career. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. My family had made a crucial error in judgment. They'd assumed I was still the scared, people-pleasing girl who'd let them walk all over her for 28 years. Instead, they'd just declared war on someone who specialized in strategic destruction. My first call after landing was to Patricia. "I want to file a police report for breaking and entering. I also want to explore civil liability for property damage and theft." The scotch they opened. It was a $400 bottle I was saving for a special occasion. More importantly, they forced the lock on my back door. I have video evidence of the break-in, the theft, and their admission of guilt. This could get expensive for them very quickly. Criminal trespass, destruction of property, theft. You're looking at potential felony charges depending on the total value of damages. Good. I also want a cease and desist letter sent to each of them. No contact unless I initiate it, no approaching my property, no social media harassment. Patricia paused. "Nora, are you sure you want to go nuclear on your family? These kinds of legal actions tend to make reconciliation impossible." "Patricia, they broke into my home and celebrated humiliating me. Reconciliation was never an option." The police report was filed that afternoon. Officer Jenkins, who took my statement, seemed skeptical at first. Family disputes rarely rose to the level of criminal charges. But the video evidence changed everything. Clear footage of forced entry, theft of alcohol, destruction of property, and their own admissions of guilt made the case airtight. "Ma'am, with this evidence, we can definitely pursue charges. Break-in is a Class 4 felony in Colorado, especially with the value of the property involved. The theft and destruction of property add additional charges." "I want the full prosecution. No family discounts." The legal machinery began grinding forward with the slow inevitability of a glacier. Arrest warrants were issued. Court dates were set. My family's phone started buzzing with calls from lawyers and bondsmen, but the legal consequences were just the beginning. My family had never understood what I did for work, dismissing my consulting firm as meeting with people and writing reports. They didn't realize that my business was built on reputation and relationships, and that those relationships extended far beyond corporate boardrooms. I made 3 strategic phone calls. First to Marcus Webb, who ran the largest employment agency in our city. My firm had helped his company navigate a major crisis 2 years ago, saving them millions in potential liability. Marcus owed me, and more importantly, he knew the value of my work. "Nora, good to hear from you. What can I do?" I need you to flag some names in your system, people who should be considered high-risk hires due to character issues. I gave him the names of my family members. Within 48 hours, their job applications would be quietly filtered out of any decent position in the city. Second, to Jennifer Clark, who managed client relations for the city's most exclusive country club, the same country club where my mother played tennis twice a week and my father golfed every Saturday. Jennifer, I'm calling in that favor from the Maxwell Industries situation. The Maxwell situation had involved me preventing a sexual harassment lawsuit that would have destroyed their reputation. Jennifer remembered. What do you need? I need some people quietly removed from your membership consideration list, character issues that wouldn't reflect well on the club's reputation. My parents' country club membership renewal would be mysteriously denied next month. Third, and most satisfying, I called David Foster at Front Range Banking, where my father had worked for 15 years in middle management. David, I need to discuss a potential character issue with one of your employees. I'd saved David's bank $12 million during a compliance audit 3 years ago. He took my concerns very seriously. The video of my family breaking into my home, drinking stolen alcohol, and mocking me while admitting to criminal trespassing made for compelling evidence of poor judgment and questionable character. Victor would be quietly transferred to a lower-level position within the month, effectively ending his hopes for the promotion he'd been chasing for years. But the most elegant consequence was the one I didn't have to orchestrate at all. Zoe had posted the entire confrontation on social media. The video of my family breaking into my home, mocking me, and then being confronted by Caleb went viral in our local social circles within 48 hours. The comments were brutal. Imagine being so entitled you break into your daughter's house and then act like the victim. The boyfriend defending her while her own family trashes her. These people are disgusting. I know these people. Trust me, this is exactly how they've always treated her. My mother's tennis group began excluding her from social events. My father's golf partners started finding excuses to play with other people. Laya's social media posts were flooded with comments calling out her behavior. The social media consequences were particularly devastating because they highlighted a pattern my family couldn't deny. Multiple people came forward with their own stories of my family's entitled behavior, their demands for free consulting work, their assumptions that my success belonged to them. Within a week of their break-in, my family was socially radioactive. The legal consequences followed more slowly but hit harder. Criminal trespass charges meant court dates, legal fees, and potential jail time. The civil lawsuit I filed for property damage and emotional distress sought $50,000 in damages. Enough to hurt, but not quite enough to bankrupt them. More importantly, the charges created public records. Background checks for jobs, housing applications, loan approvals. All would now show criminal convictions for trespassing and theft. The financial pressure mounted quickly. Victor's demotion at the bank came with a 40% pay cut. Sylvia's part-time job at a boutique ended when the owner decided he didn't want employees with criminal records. Laya's freelance marketing clients began quietly dropping her after the video made her unemployable in professional circles. Ryan, who'd had nothing to do with my family before dating Laya, found himself tied to their reputation and facing consequences for choices that weren't even his. He broke up with her 3 weeks after the incident, citing the drama that could affect his career in sales. But it was Theo who cracked first. He showed up at my office 6 weeks after the break-in, looking haggard and desperate. My assistant buzzed me. "There's a Theo Brennan here. Says he's family and needs to talk." I kept him waiting 20 minutes before agreeing to see him. When he finally sat across from my desk, the man who'd laughed along while they mocked me in my own home looked broken. "Nora, please. You have to stop this." "Stop what, Theo?" "The charges, the lawsuit, whatever you did to get us blacklisted from jobs. My wife is threatening to leave me. We can't afford the legal fees." I leaned back in my chair, studying him with the same detached analysis I used on corporate clients. You broke into my home, stole my property, and celebrated humiliating me. What exactly did you think would happen? We were drunk. It was stupid, but it wasn't malicious. Wasn't it? You filmed yourselves mocking me. You toasted my failure to enjoy my own property. You celebrated the fact that I wasn't there to defend myself. His hand shook as he pulled out his phone. Look, I have the money to pay for the damages. Whatever it costs to fix the door, replace the alcohol, I'll make it right. This was never about money, Theo. Then what? What do you want? I stared at him for a long moment, remembering every family gathering where he'd joined in, mocking my career, my relationships, my choices. Every time he'd made me feel small and worthless while benefiting from my success. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want you to learn that you can't treat people like garbage and expect them to keep taking it. Most of all, I want you to stay out of my life unless I decide to let you back in. He left my office in tears. The criminal charges and civil lawsuit proceeded exactly as planned. The rest of my family proved more stubborn. Victor and Sylvia hired a lawyer who advised them to fight the charges, claiming they'd had implied permission to use the property as family members. The strategy backfired spectacularly when the video evidence made it clear they knew I didn't want them there. Laya doubled down on social media, posting long rants about family loyalty and siblings who choose strangers over blood. Each post drew more negative attention, with people sharing the original break-in video and asking how she could possibly justify her behavior. The court case was a masterclass in preparation meeting opportunity. Patricia had assembled a devastating case. Video evidence of forced entry, theft, and destruction of property, witness testimony from Zoe and Caleb, documentation of repair costs and stolen items, and character evidence showing a pattern of entitled behavior. My family's lawyer tried to argue that the charges were excessive for a family misunderstanding, but the judge was unimpressed. The defendants broke into the plaintiff's home, consumed her property without permission, and caused damage to her door and furnishings. The fact that they're related doesn't give them the right to commit crimes. Victor, Sylvia, and Laya were each sentenced to 6 months of probation, 100 hours of community service, and ordered to pay restitution for damages. More importantly, they now had criminal records that would follow them for years. The civil lawsuit settled out of court for $35,000 plus legal fees. My family paid every penny. But the real victory wasn't financial or legal. It was the day I realized I no longer cared what they thought of me. 3 months after the break-in, I was having dinner at the lake house with Caleb and Zoe. The property had been repaired and was more beautiful than ever. The forced lock was replaced with a high-tech security system. The stolen scotch was replaced with an even better bottle. The space felt truly mine for the first time. "Any regrets?" Caleb asked, watching the sunset paint the lake in shades of gold. "About which part? The legal consequences, the social fallout, or cutting them out of my life?" "Any of it." I considered the question seriously. My family was struggling financially, socially isolated, and facing years of legal consequences. Some people would call my response excessive, even cruel. But I thought about 28 years of being made to feel small, worthless, and invisible. 28 years of having my achievements dismissed, my dreams mocked, and my kindness taken for granted. 28 years of being treated like their personal ATM and emotional punching bag. "None at all," I said finally. "They spent decades teaching me that I didn't matter. I just taught them that they were wrong." The lake house became everything I dreamed it would be, a sanctuary where I could recharge, think strategically, and remember my own worth. More importantly, it became a symbol of what I could accomplish when I stopped trying to please people who would never respect me. My business thrived without the constant drama of family obligations. My relationship with Caleb deepened when I wasn't constantly stressed about managing my family's demands. Even my friendship with Zoe grew stronger as I learned to set boundaries and prioritize people who actually valued me. 6 months after the break-in, on a gorgeous September morning, I was drinking coffee on my deck when my phone rang. Mom, I let it go to voicemail. Nora, it's your mother. I know you're angry, but this has gone on long enough. Your father lost his promotion, and Leia can't find decent work anywhere. We're family. We need to forgive each other and move past this. I deleted the message without responding. An hour later, Leia called. Nora, pick up. I know you're screening my calls. Look, I'm sorry about what happened, okay? I was drunk and stupid. But you've made your point. This revenge thing is getting ridiculous. People are starting to think you're the villain here. I blocked her number. That afternoon brought a text from Theo. Your dad's in the hospital. Heart attack. Mom thinks it's the stress from everything that's happened. Don't you think you've punished us enough? I forwarded the message to Patricia with a note. Emotional manipulation attempt. Please document for harassment case if this continues. The truth was simpler than they wanted to acknowledge. I hadn't set out to punish them. I'd simply stopped protecting them from the consequences of their choices. For the first time in my adult life, when they acted badly, I let them experience the full weight of their actions without swooping in to fix things. They'd broken into my home expecting weak, doormat Nora to quietly clean up their mess and pretend it never happened. Instead, they'd met strategic consultant Nora, who documented everything, consulted with experts, and implemented a comprehensive response designed to ensure the problem never happened again. The difference wasn't revenge, it was boundaries. A year later, I was hosting a small dinner party at the lake house. Caleb's parents were visiting from Oregon, along with Zoe and her new boyfriend, Martin. We were grilling steaks on the deck, watching the sunset and talking about everything except my family drama. That's when I knew I'd truly won. Not because my family was still struggling with the consequences of their choices, though they were. Not because I'd proven I was stronger than they'd ever imagined, though I had. I'd won because I'd stopped needing their approval to feel valuable. I'd built a life surrounded by people who respected me, supported me, and celebrated my success instead of resenting it. For the first time in 28 years, I was exactly where I belonged. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Ryan, Laya's ex. I wanted to apologize for my part in what happened at your house. What we did was inexcusable, and watching how your family treated you opened my eyes to why you reacted the way you did. I hope you're doing well. I appreciated the apology, but I'd moved beyond needing it. The scared girl who'd spent decades craving validation from people who would never give it was gone. In her place was a woman who knew her worth and refused to settle for less. That evening, as Caleb's parents shared stories about raising confident children, and Zoe talked about her upcoming promotion at the newspaper, I realized something profound. This was what family was supposed to feel like. Support without conditions, love without manipulation, pride in each other's achievements instead of resentment. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, Caleb and I sat by the fire pit watching stars reflect on the dark water. Do you ever miss them? He asked quietly. I miss the family I thought they could be, I said. But I don't miss the people they actually were. Any chance you'll reconcile eventually? I considered it honestly. A year ago, the question would have sent me spiraling into guilt and self-doubt. Now it felt simple. If they ever genuinely acknowledge what they did and show real change over time, maybe we could have some kind of relationship. But it would never be the same. They'd have to earn back trust they spent decades destroying. And if they don't? Then I continue building the life I deserve with people who actually love me. As I write this, 18 months have passed since the break-in. My consulting firm is more successful than ever, having landed 3 major Fortune 500 clients this year alone. The lake house has become legendary among my friends as the most peaceful place on earth. Caleb proposed at Christmas, with Zoe as one of the first to know. My family has stabilized somewhat. Theo found a job in Denver and seems to be rebuilding his life quietly, though we haven't spoken since that day in my office. Laya moved to Phoenix, apparently deciding a fresh start was better than trying to rehabilitate her reputation locally. Victor recovered from his heart attack and returned to his demoted position at the bank, while Sylvia found part-time work at a different boutique. Ryan moved to Seattle for a new sales position and has had no contact with any of them since the breakup. They're all still dealing with the long-term consequences of their choices. Criminal records that affect job applications, social isolation in their former circles, and financial struggles from legal fees and lost income. But that's no longer my problem to solve. The girl who let them break her boundaries for 28 years is gone. The woman who replaced her knows exactly what she's worth and refuses to accept anything less than she deserves. And sometimes, late at night at the lake house, when the water is perfectly still and the mountains are silhouetted against the star-filled sky, I think about how much time I wasted trying to earn love from people who were never capable of giving it freely. I don't make that mistake anymore.